This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about plant-based pig snout, the rhythm of a great sitcom argument, and how the Chicago Cubs broke the fabric of reality. All that and more as we watch Season 2, Episode 14 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Sophia. I am one of your hosts, and joining me today is my favoritist brother and my favoritist co-host. What's up, Imran?
Oh, hello, Sophia. Hello, listener. I just finished making a delicious meal for us for this episode. A traditional Pakistani meal, Sophia.
What'd you make?
You got one cow tongue and some goat brain with saffron, of course.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Because you gotta have saffron. By the way, listener, those are two real dishes that I've eaten, and with enough cumin and paprika.
Oh my God, brain masala is the best.
It tastes it's like scrambled eggs a little bit.
Well, that's a very appropriate thing that you did for us tonight, because today we are speaking about Perfect Strangers episode 14, season 2, episode 14, flip that, which is called Trouble in Paradise.
Yes, this title is a classic movie, Sophia, 1932 movie directed by Ernst Lubitsch. And I'm not familiar with this movie. It does sound like one of those classic cinemas, Trouble in Paradise. But I think we're all familiar with the phrase as in the stupid, annoying, cliche thing to say when you're gossiping about someone's relationship going sour. Where you're like, oh, trouble in paradise? Boo.
Interesting.
No.
So if you were to open the TV guide back in 1987, you would see the description for this episode that said, Balky invites the guy's friends over for dinner, but Larry balks when Balky insists on serving Meposian fare.
That's like a tongue twister. You read that very well. There's a lot of Balkies and balks in that description. Perfect Strangers, of course, starring the hilarious Bronson Pinchot, Mark Lynn-Baker. This episode also featuring the girls.
Friends.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're friends who have names. They're called Rebecca Arthur, who plays Marianne, and Melanie Wilson, playing Jennifer Lyons. This episode first aired January 21st, 1987.
Act 1, we open at everyone's favorite Ritz discount store. Now, Larry and Balky are taking inventory, okay? And what are they taking inventory of? Larry's reading off the items, and the things he reads off
What
are
do we got?
Lone Ranger masks.
Okay.
Vulcan ears.
Yes.
Dracula teeth.
Huh.
Now, this episode aired
theme.
in January, but it seems like we are stocking up Halloween costumes at Ritz Discount.
Listen, Twinkie said he's just getting a jump for next season. He's no idiot. I love that it's inventory and we're getting a little more insight into their selection of products. Anyways, they have 24 of all of those things, so that's enough.
So Balky is super focused, counting all the items. Larry's having trouble concentrating. He's nervous. Of course he's nervous. Larry's always nervous.
It's Larry.
But why is he nervous today? Today he's nervous because Jennifer is returning from a flight to Rome. Because Jennifer and Marianne are flight attendants.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know how to behave because he doesn't know what their relationship status is. He doesn't understand. He's like, how do I receive her back? So this is kind of refreshing because for several episodes now, you and I have been wondering,
Right?
what's going on with this relationship.
The deal? Now they're at a point where he can grab her and kiss her under a mistletoe passionately, like they almost made out. So I don't know where that falls in.
That
anyways.
was mistletoe.
I guess that was mistletoe.
That was mistletoe.
This isn't normal. It's outside of the mistletoe. Right. He doesn't know what's going on. So while he's talking, Balky has ducked down to shelve things, and he pops up in a Ronald Reagan mask. The Ronald Reagan mask. And he does a great Ronald Reagan impression. He goes,
with a Meposian accent.
with that, yeah, and he's just like, well, Nancy and I have a wonderful relationship. And Larry looks at Balky exasperated. And he goes, very sensitive. First of all, this reminded me of so many things. The Ronald Reagan impression was huge. Everyone was walking around going, well, I don't recall. Because in the Iran-Contra hearings, he didn't remember anything. And he just kept going, well, I don't remember. Well, I don't recall. And then the mask reminded me of the movie Point Break featuring...
Yeah, because it was that full head, rubber...
Patrick Swayze, Keanu Reeves playing bank robbers, and they all wore president masks in that movie. Also came out in the 80s. But it's so funny. He just comes up as Reagan. He's like, well, it's hilarious.
So Balky pops up doing this Reagan impression. Larry's just like, ugh. And then they have a quick, quippy, classic Balky Larry exchange. Larry goes to Balky. He's like, very sensitive here. I'm trying to share a personal problem here, and you're being silly. And Balky's like, no. Larry's like, aren't you? Balky's like, no, Larry, aren't you? Balky says, Larry, aren't you? And Balky's like, yes, I am.
Oh, this is a thing they do a couple of times.
It's like a dance. It's a dance.
Aren't you? No, aren't you? No, aren't you? Yes, I am.
So Larry is still very nervous. He's like, how am I going to find out how Jennifer feels about me? And Balky's like, why don't you just ask her?
Solid suggestion. Seems to make sense.
Innocent, straightforward Balky, straight shooter Balky.
But then I love Larry just breaks into his scoff laughter and it's just just ask her. And then he does another thing I love. He goes, oh, Balky.
Called mansplaining. It was Larry splaining before we had this term mansplaining.
Yes, he's Larry splaining to Balky about women. And here we get more insight into Larry's relationship with women. He goes, you have to read women. You have to interpret the subtle nuances of what they say or don't say, the way they look at you or don't look at you, the way they touch you or, as in my case, don't touch you. Balky just looks at him and goes, boy, your life is hard work for you.
Yeah. Life is hard work for Larry. He makes a big deal out of everything.
Balky suggests, look, why don't you just invite them over for dinner? And him and Marianne can talk, and you and Jennifer can read each other. And Larry goes, I'll think about it.
Then Jennifer and Marianne enter the store. They're coming straight from the airport. They're in their flight attendant uniforms, and they're carrying luggage. And the guys are very happy to see them, and they greet them. How was your trip? Yada, yada. And Jennifer, this is great. This is such a sign of the times. Jennifer returns a travel alarm that she borrowed from Larry. Do you remember travel alarms? I think we might have to explain this.
So let me get this straight. You had to have a separate device that told time that was small enough that you could take in your luggage.
With batteries,
With batteries that wound up, so you could pop it up and set it to wake you up in the morning.
I started doing a lot of traveling halfway through college, which was not in the 80s, but it was not long after the 80s. And I had travel alarms because listeners, back in the day, if you don't remember this, we didn't have mobile phones. No. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have everything in our phones.
No, we didn't have
any of that. So regular alarm clocks were things you plugged into the wall and set the time and set the time when you wanted it to go off or the radio to play in the morning.
It's a weird concept. But look, just like a grumpy old man, back in my day, we used our internal clock. And that's the way it was. And we liked it.
You can't when you go overseas when you're in a different time zone.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So then a travel alarm was a battery-operated thing that you didn't have to plug in anywhere and you take with you. Anyway, that's more than we needed to say about travel
it's just a weird thing been thinking about it.
It's just something that stood out at me as I watched this. I was like, oh my goodness, I used to go to the like the camping travel store, luggage store to buy
get the best
travel alarms. Anyway, Marianne, I love this. Starting with this next line, this whole scene, this whole episode kind of sets up Marianne's character a lot too for moving forward. Marianne says, boy, working those flights to Rome really plays tricks on your mind. Is it Friday or Saturday? And Larry tells her it's Friday. And Jennifer looks at Marianne and she goes, I told you so. And Marianne's like, I wanted a second opinion. Okay. So we're getting this little insight into Marianne's character, which is dumb as a rock.
Their relationship a little bit, Jennifer and Marianne. Yeah.
Which is also,
well, it's been established that Marianne was not the brightest.
Yes.
So, but now they're really digging into it.
So without without consulting Larry, Balky opens his mouth and goes ahead and invites the girls to dinner.
Right in front of him.
And he said, "You can relax and shake off your jet slag."
Jet slag. I love
He
it.
means jet lag.
Jet slag. Your jet has lagged you.
Although I think jet slag sounds better.
That works. It
lag.
sounds like what you feel. You're jet slagged.
And Larry is, of course, startled and flustered, as he often is. And he's like, "What he would have planned forever, right?" But
Right.
Balky just steps in and goes for it.
You got to do it.
So the girls are like, "We'd love to. Are you sure it's not too much trouble?" And Larry, tries to play it off, but he's nervous. He's like, "Trouble? No, we'll just throw something together. We'll uncork some vino, kick back, relax. It'll be very mellow."
Mellow. Larry Appleton is anything but mellow.
Yeah. Has
we
he
know
ever
that.
been mellow?
No, so this is going to be great. So the girls start to leave, and Marianne is like, "We need to get up to the apartment. I may have left the gas on." So as Jennifer looks at her and goes, "Marianne, if you'd left the gas on, the building wouldn't be here." Then Marianne looks around and goes, "Oh, well, that's good news." Yikes. This is
we're getting with every line. So I feel like the dialogue in this episode was so intentional.
Yes, everything was
Every
used. Yes,
line,
nothing's wasted. Absolutely.
Was used to build the story, not only of this episode, but of these characters.
And so Marianne is a dangerous roommate to have. But as they leave, Larry plays it cool and he goes, "Ciao." But as soon as they're gone, Larry gives Balky his angry look. He goes, "Why?
Wide-eyed.
Yes, why did you do it?" And Balky's pretty much like, "But why not?
Why not?
Why not? Why not?" Which he's got a point. Why not? And Larry is just frustrated that Balky doesn't get it. He's starting to close the store early. He flips the store side from open to close. He tells Balky, "If we're going to do this, we don't have enough time to do this right." And Balky goes, "Cousin," I love this line. It's so great. Balky goes, "Cousin, it will just be like you said. We'll relax. We do some kickbacks. We'll be marshmallows. What the big deal is?"
Big deal is?
I love going, "Hey, I want to walk around going, hey, we relax. We do some kickbacks. We'll be marshmallows.
What the big deal is?
What the big deal is? We'll be marshmallows." It's so good.
And then Larry, again, is like rolling his eyes at this
And being condescending and offensive,
He's
insulting.
Yeah, exactly. Just mean. He's like, "Oh, no wonder parents in Mipos have to buy wives for their sons."
Jeez.
And then he goes into Larry-splaining mode again. "Balky, Jennifer is a sophisticated woman.
Why?
She's been in every airport in the world."
That's why she's
I love that, like, 24-year-old Larry Appleton from Madison, Wisconsin thinks that
This girl's got
the
class.
sign of sophistication is being in every airport in the world.
Fantastic.
So he goes on, "If I'm going to impress her, I have to have the right food, the right wine, the right lighting. This evening has got to be very carefully orchestrated." And Balky tells Larry he's taking this too seriously. And then he does this little goes into this infomercial voice. He goes, "You're going to get simple nervous tension." Like a pharmaceutical commercial.
But the delivery is just like, he snaps it. "You're going to get simple nervous tension." You're like, what? Just the perfect accent comes out. It's weird.
And by this point, of course, we're back to the good old frantic, panicky Larry Appleton that we know and love. And he's like, "I have to plan what could be the most important dinner of my life, and I've only got 3 hours." Oh, my goodness.
He puts pressure on everything. He put pressure on Christmas, and now he's going to drive himself crazy over this.
Balky's like, "No problem. I can help." And Larry says, "You've helped enough." And Balky, again, here's another very classic Balky-Larry exchange. Balky says, "But I want to help cook." Larry says, "No." Balky says, "I want to help cook." Larry says, "No, you can't help cook." Balky cries, "I want to help cook." Larry gives in. He says, all right, you can help cook." And Balky suddenly is happy again. He's like, "Okay." And Larry makes a list. He's like frantically scribbling this list with tasks and ingredients, and he gives it to Balky, and he tells Balky to go get stuff for the appetizers and the salad while he goes to the butcher's. They grab their coats, they leave.
Oh, boy, it's on. We cut to the next scene, which is later that evening in the apartment, and you can see they have set the dining table as best as these boys can with these like kitchen chairs from the 80s. You remember the
we had those chairs.
We had those exact chairs.
We had those chairs till recently.
Where it's not
for
4 legs.
Time.
It's like a number 5 metal frame and You know what I'm talking about. Everybody's had these chairs.
Everyone had these chairs. That's another fun part about rewatching this show, because we're also going to talk about dishes later.
Yes, Dishware is also familiar.
But you watch this show and you're like, wait a minute, we had that stuff. It was so familiar. We had those chairs.
You were like, that's my childhood bedroom set. What is it doing on the show? So,
my childhood bedroom furniture was in Vegas.
Yes, it was in Vegas. But look, the table is set very nicely, ready for this dinner with the girls.
They've moved it to near the fireplace.
Yeah, where the sofas usually are. And Balki is in this lovely gold embroidered Myposian vest with lovely dangly fringes on the bottom.
And like underneath the vest is a completely black ensemble, like black long sleeve shirt.
He looks great. He looks tight.
It's very So it's just black and gold.
Black and gold. And song alert, he is singing the 1982 Pointer Sisters hit, I'm So Excited, of course, because he's very excited as he's gyrating and pulsing his hips.
I'm about to lose control.
And I think I like it.
And he's like, he's pulsing his hips, and the fringes on the bottom of his vest are like dancing around. It's brilliant.
It dances in the light, and you like can't help but notice.
Listen, I want to give a big apology to all our listeners that like sometimes there are moments on this show that we try our best to describe with words, and that's a fun challenge for me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. It's a fun challenge for me to try to talk about those things in words, but sometimes you just have to go and watch it.
Hopefully our descriptions make you go watch it. Anyways, Larry enters from his bedroom and he's wearing a dress jacket over his regular bright red sweater. And he's really nervous. And he asks Balki, he goes, well, what do you think? Balki goes, about what?
About what?
Larry goes, how do I look? Balki goes, you look like you just stepped off the cover of IQ. Larry goes, GQ. Balki goes, you're welcome.
I love it. So well done.
And later, Larry takes off the jacket. He goes, maybe the jacket is too much. She'll think I'm trying too hard. And Balki agrees. He goes, she'd be right. She'll be right.
So then that was an excellent exchange. There's so many good exchanges this episode. So then they both go to the kitchen, and Larry opens this pot that's on the stove, and he leans down to like take a whiff of what's inside, and then he starts coughing like disgustedly. Yeah. And he's like, what is this? And so he's like, these aren't the carrots. And Balki's like, no, they're wild olives. And Larry's like, what? And Balki says, they're for the salad. Come, I show you. And he takes him by the hand and like runs him over to the table by the fireplace.
Yeah.
And shows him the bowl. And Larry says, this is the salad. He says it the same way that Balki does, which I love when that happens. And Larry's like, there's no lettuce in there. And Balki said, well, you said we should impress the girls, so I thought. And then he like looks up in this like dramatic, thoughtful pose. Leaves? That's not very impressive.
He's right. It's not. Lettuce is just, it's water. It's the least impressive thing ever.
No nutritional value.
It's horrible. Don't eat it.
So Balki decided to make Mama special salad, although he pronounces it salad this time.
Oh, he does?
Yes, I caught that, not salad. But what's in Mama's special salad?
Yes, what's the recipe?
Wild olives, ginkgo root, mustard curd, onions, and a dash of liver oil to keep the ginkgo root down.
You gotta keep the ginkgo root down. Jeez.
And now Larry is like pissed, all right? He's so annoyed because remember, to Larry, everything's a big deal. This is going to be the date that changes his life.
He's a planner
the most important
also.
Date of his life.
Yes.
And he's like, all I asked him was to get some stuff on my list. Balki didn't get the stuff on the list. And he's like, lettuce was on my list and bean and curd things were not. And Balki's like, yeah, but your list was boring. And Larry says, my list was food.
My list was food.
Balki's like, yes, but not fun food.
Oh, he says fun.
And then he goes, that's why Balki made a few things to spice the menu up.
Oh, man. They go back to the kitchen so Balki can show Larry casserole dishes of the Myposian food he's made. He goes, I thought we'd treat ourselves to that old standard. Ding Ding Mahmoud. You know it, of course, as snout with saffron. And then
Pig snout
with saffron. And then he goes, and then I thought we'd go to that traditional Mypos courtship dish, batbatnichi. Eel wrapped in grape leaves. He goes, I was going to surprise you, but you forced me. And he's all proud of himself pulling out his food in these dishes. But Larry is not happy at all.
Okay, we need to stop for a minute and talk about these casserole dishes. In this scene, it's very brief, but we see them again later in the episode. And do you recognize what's on the side?
Oh,
the design
yeah,
on those dishes?
The orange brown kind of floral,
The like
fleur-de-lis,
70s yellow.
70s
Yeah, it was
repeating
called Corning Butterfly
Corel
Gold
from Corel Corningware. Yes.
It is a dishware set that like everyone had. We will put some images, and if you just Google it, you'll be like, oh yeah, we had those dishes, especially if your parents were immigrants.
Our mom still has those dishes.
They came in the gold and the green.
But again, this is the height of like being an immigrant coming to this country. You could afford the set of Corningware, these butterfly dishes everybody had.
Balky's an immigrant, so maybe that's the tie there. But I think non-immigrants also had these dishes then. They were very popular.
It was just, but then it became ubiquitous, and everybody has
a sign of being in America in the 80s. You're like, we're here, we have the dishes that everyone has. But you will certainly, I think many listeners, if you Google Corning Butterfly Gold Dishware by Corel, you'll see what we're talking about. I recognized it immediately.
I didn't notice until you said something. I was like, that's the dishes.
Not only the chairs, but the dishware as well.
Dishes.
Like, we have all that stuff. Anyway, back to Balky, Larry being annoyed with Balky. Larry says, Balky, think. And then Balky scrunches his face to concentrate and think. Because he said, think.
I'm thinking. Nothing's happening.
And Larry says, 2 girls that we like and desire are coming to dinner. What possible advantage can be gained from poisoning them? And now Balky is very hurt. Like he's offended, as he should be, because that's a terrible thing to hear. He's offended. He puts the dishes on the dining room table and he's like, these are staples of the Miposian diet. They make me into the big, strong man I am today. And Larry grabs the dishes to take him back to the kitchen. He says, I don't want Jennifer to be a big, strong man. But here's like creepy Larry coming back out.
Yeah.
He says, I don't want Jennifer to be a big, strong man. I want her to like me. I want her to be impressed. I want her to survive long enough to bear my children.
Yeah, yeah.
Therefore, this food is out. Okay, Larry.
He's planning his reproduction future already here.
I mean, this is like stalker behavior. Stalker psychopath behavior.
She will have my children.
Where is his shrine to Jennifer in the back room?
Probably there.
Yeah. So then Balky says, well, Balky's getting angry right back at Larry. They're like in a full-on argument fight now. He says, well, Marianne is my date and I want her to try it. And they're doing this like dance across the apartment back and forth, carrying the Miposian food to the dining table, back to the kitchen and back and forth.
This whole episode has this whole wonderful sense of rhythm to the motions and the delivery. And I have an example coming up later, but Larry's trying to compromise with Balky. He goes, look, we'll have my dinner tonight. We'll save your dinner, Balky, for a special occasion. Say when the Cubs win the World Series. To which Balky scoffs and goes, oh, Paul, what do you take me for? Bozo the Clown? There's one reference, but it doesn't stop there. He goes, everybody knows the Cubs have no quarterback. That's another thing he screwed up. There is a lot to unpack in this reference right here.
Okay, we are mid-argument, and we will return to the argument in a moment, but there are 2 references right here. The first is Balky said Bozo the Clown. Of course, he means Bozo the Clown.
Yes.
And for those of you who are listening who are a little bit younger than us, you should know that Bozo the Clown was a very popular children's entertainment clown character, widely popular in the second half of the 20th century. A little bit of history. Introduced in the United States in 1946 and to television in 1949, and later was the star of a franchise television show called Bozo the Clown, The Bozo Show, that this clown hosted. And it was a franchise, and Bozo was played by many different, numerous local performers. Now, furthermore,
yes,
the Chicago Bozo franchise was the most popular and successful locally produced children's program in the history of television.
Wow.
So more than Sesame Street, more than Mr. Rogers, locally produced. Okay. So this was the Chicago franchise. And indeed, if you grew up in Chicago in the 70s, 80s, 90s, you know the Bozo show.
Absolutely. You wanted to go
Bozo.
on the show and play Bozo buckets and get the ball into that last bucket to get the Schwinn bicycle. But what a
Bozo
crazy
buckets.
thing. Bozo became a clown that was franchised as a character, and then the Chicago version of the franchise, because on WGN, they had a wide reach. A lot of people could get it in different
it was on
states.
WGN. It started airing every weekday morning or weekday at noon.
I just remember watching.
Well, it moved to the mornings later.
Watching it in the morning, and then it was so huge. Do people even remember? Do they know Bozo the Clown anymore? It's
I remember it. It was great. And so then in Chicago, it aired on in the mornings until the final episode was taped in 2001, June 12th. And aired on July 14th, 2001.
Yeah, you had to get up real early to watch it, I remember.
Yeah, and reruns were aired until later.
I had a couple of friends who actually got on the show. They told, they said when we were kids, we had got on. But that was the thing. You always wanted to go on the show, but it was very hard to get on. It was very popular.
Bozo the Clown was a huge Chicago thing, so I felt like we had to dig into that.
Okay, so then the other reference, though, is the Cubs winning the World Series, because at the time, this is really funny, especially now. At the time, the Cubs notoriously were known as the worst team in baseball, and they never got close.
Well, a little bit of history. They had won the World Series championships in 1907.
And then there was a curse with a goat.
And then they didn't win for 50, 70, 80, 90, 100, 108 years. Until they finally won in 2016. And I remember...
That was crazy, yes.
That was just a few years ago.
So, and I also think when the Cubs won the World Series, something that maybe is never supposed to happen, if you look at history and events, that's when things started to get a little funny. That's when things started to go downhill. I blame the Cubs winning the World Series.
2016?
Yes, right? The Cubs win the World Series.
It's not a change in the presidential administration.
Everything goes crazy after that. I blame it on the Cubs. So Balky would have been waiting till 2016 to serve his food, basically.
But I mean, the relevant point here is the Cubs not winning the World Series became this joke that was very common in popular culture, in television shows, and movies, often referenced.
But then when they did, it was such a historic, crazy thing to watch in this city. So anyways, back into this argument. They're still arguing about the food. Balky goes, cousin, why are you getting all poofed out of shape? He goes, I'm not getting poofed out of shape. And then they have a classic Balky-Larry exchange where Larry, of course, talks down and berates Balky. He goes, Balky, how many times have you served dinner to two beautiful women? And Balky goes, well, Larry interrupts, how many? How many times? But Balky goes, 3. He goes, in America? Balky goes, none. None as in 0, as in never, as in no times, never, ever have you. And that's when Larry proves his point, takes the food from the table. He's like, we're going to do this my way. And Balky's upset because he went through a lot of trouble to make this food.
He starts yelling.
He starts yelling at him. And Larry won't let him serve his food. And he goes, you are squeezing all the fun out of this date. But I love that. How many times, Balky? How many times?
So now Balky's very upset. He's like, I went through all this trouble. He's yelling. And Larry's also upset. He says, he's squeezing all the fun out of the date for good reason. And then this is one of my favorite Larry lines from this episode. He says, a casual dinner is nothing to be taken lightly.
Casual dinner.
Excellent wordplay.
Casual dinner. Nothing.
And as he says this, he's punctuating every word by jabbing his finger into Balky's shoulder.
It's a little passive aggressive, a little more aggressive than passive, but
which is great.
What are you doing, Larry?
Segue into a little bit of physical comedy.
Yes.
So Balky's like, "Don't jab me." Balky jabs hhis finger back at Larry on Larry's shoulder. Larry then, and this is all like without any words, right? They're just doing this little wordless physical comedy bit. Larry gives Balky's shoulder a shove. Balky playfully puts both of his hands on Larry's chest and then pushes him hard.
It's escalating a little bit.
Yeah, and Larry he's about to give Balky a big shove in return when he stops and sniffs in the air the way that he does. And he's like, what's that smell? And then they do this brilliant ballet where they both turn in opposite directions. They're facing each other. Larry says, what's that smell? And Balky turns around to his outside to like look behind
He
him.
looks at his bum like he did
Yes. Yes, he looks at him behind.
He looks at his behind, and Larry looks the other way towards the kitchen.
And then Larry realizes what it is, and he runs to the kitchen. Balky follows him. He opens the oven to find a burned duck. His duck is burned. My duck. And then this is physical comedy part 2. Larry grabs a towel, uses it to take a smoking pan with a charred duck out of the oven, and he goes, ow, ow, hot, hot, hot. And he tells Balky, take it. Balky picks up the burned duck from the pan with his hands. And, he's like, ow, ow, ow. And he throws it in the air to Larry. Larry catches it, and he goes, ow, ow, ow. Meanwhile, Balky runs to the stereo by the window, grabs the plastic lid off the stereo, turns it upside down, runs over, and Larry tosses it because it's burning his hands up in the air, and Balky catches it
perfectly
in the stereo cover, and the audience applauds.
Well, it's so funny because why did Balky grab the duck with his hands when Larry's like, take it?
Yeah.
That's the first thing you thought of was like, grab the hot duck out of the oven. Hilarious. Again, they're throwing meat around. We saw them throw ground meat
around, and they're catching it perfectly.
And they're catching it. More meat in the air. This is a theme.
This is a theme. So then Larry has noticed that Balky had turned the oven up to 500 degrees. Like, why'd you do that? And Balky's like, because that's the temperature I need for my sheep herder's bread.
Of course.
And Larry says, where did sheep herder's bread come from? And Balky says, well, I think its origins are a little island off the coast. And Larry's like, I don't care where it came from. And Balky's like, well, why did you ask?
That's so great. This gets better. Here's the example of the rhythm. I'm going to play this clip because Larry is just devastated at the sight of his dried out duck. He screwed up his meal. And Balky goes, oh, cousin, cheer up. I made enough ding ding mahmoud for a whole village. As he grabs it and does a little like Jackie Gleason step.
Yeah. And his face is like.
And he's laughing and he's carrying the pig snout back to the table.
Like a wind up step.
He does a little wind up step. Zing. And off we go. And then Larry approaches. And here, I'm just going to play this quick clip because you need to hear the timing in the delivery and the actions of what is going on here when Larry approaches him.
Oh, yeah.
I am not letting you serve that food.
Well, maybe you can't stop me.
Oh, well, maybe I can. Give me the ding ding mahmoud.
No.
Give me the ding ding mahmoud.
No.
Give me the ding ding mahmoud. The girls.
It's so good. I love that. Where it's just like, it's that, you see that rhythm? Give me the ding ding mahmoud. Tick, 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 tick. The girls. Oh, the rhythm and the timing and the show is so good.
So good. In fact, so they gasp and they're like, the girls. And Larry says, okay, let's put aside our differences and let's just try to get through this. And he takes the pig snout back to the kitchen again. And Balky's pissed. They're still in this argument. He says, well, I'm not the one with the problem. You're the one with the problem.
They're yelling at
and
each
Larry
other
says,
now.
yes, I'm the one with the problem and you're the problem.
Oh, God.
I'm just trying to show a lady a good time. Balky says, I'm just trying to show a lady a good time. Larry says, well, fine. Have a good time. And Balky says, oh, have a good time. Larry says, have a ball. They're yelling at this point. And they're walking slowly back to the door. Balky says, knock yourself out. And then both at the same time to each other are yelling, have a wonderful time. And then they open the door and in unison they're like, hi.
They are yelling. The girls must have heard that outside. They are yelling so loud at each other. It's hilarious.
This whole scene from the clip you played to the end was like, again, a great rhythm, a great little dance, this rhythmic quality.
It's like music. It's like a music composition, and they're right on time. Act 2 starts, and Jennifer and Marianne are there, and everyone's seated at the table. Balky sits down at the table. Larry brings his duck with some other stuff on the food with the burnt duck and other things he had. He goes, dinner is served. And Jennifer's like, what are we having? Larry says, oh, we're having glazed carrots, wild rice, and my specialty, duck à l'orange, he says, with the accent. And the girls are just looking at this crispy, fried black duck thing on the cutting board. And Balky goes, but the best things aren't even on the table. And Marianne goes, oh, there's more? Larry tells the girls that Balky cooked too. But Larry's like, but as you can see, I think there's plenty for everybody. Just dig in. As they start grabbing the food, Larry starts sawing at this burnt duck, and he's just sawing. And he's sawing.
Nowhere.
And then he starts hacking at it, and nothing is happening. He goes, these dull knives. Balky, I told you to sharpen these knives. Balky's like, I'll sharpen the knives. I'll sharpen the knives. Meanwhile, Marianne's trying to get rice out of the bowl, and she pulls the whole thing out in one clump. She goes, why is the rice all
shaped
clumped
like
together?
the bowl? Yeah, it comes out shaped like the bowl.
How do you even make rice that bad that it's clumped together? I don't know. I mean, I've screwed up rice, but...
And so Balky has had it by this point, and he gets up. He's like, well, girls, you're in luck because silly Balky has food in the kitchen. And Larry's like, no way. And he follows him to the kitchen. He's, Balky, you are not serving them that stuff.
That's so mean. It's so mean. It's so mean. And Balky has a good point. He goes, well, why don't we ask them if they want to try that stuff? And then he asks the table who would like to try some Mabosian food. And both of the girls are like, yeah, that sounds great. Anything would be better than that burnt piece of poultry that's sitting on the table right now.
So Balky starts serving the girls some of the food from his casserole dishes. He's dishing it out onto their plates. And the girls are, like, in general, pretty interested and excited to try Mabosian food. And they're like, this looks incredible. And Jennifer says, Balky, what do you call this? And Balky says, Ding Ding Mahmoud. And Jennifer is like preparing her fork as she says, oh, well, what does that mean? And just as she's going to take a bite, Balky goes, pig snout with saffron. And Jennifer kind of like cringes a bit, but like she's trying to be polite, so she keeps chewing.
Meanwhile, if you notice, Marianne is just scarfing the stuff down. She doesn't care. She loves it. She's like, this is delicious. It's so funny.
She's into Balky, and she's like very transparent about her feelings.
Yes.
So then we have another bit of a physical comedy. Larry gets up from there. So Balky and Larry are sitting on opposite ends of this table, and the girls are on the cross section. So Larry gets up and goes over to where Balky is, and he looks at him, and he like does that gesture with his head, like a tick to the side, indicating
like, hey, over here
in the kitchen.
Come over here.
And Balky just looks at him and like does it in the same way to the other direction.
He waves it off like a bad pitch at a baseball game. Yeah.
And he just like, he does the same head move, but he doesn't get up. And then Larry uses his thumb to motion Balky to come with him to the kitchen, and then Balky just like lifts his finger and makes little antenna bug face at Larry.
I thought he was doing like devil face. He's doing like devil horns.
He makes a funny face and he wiggles his fingers on the side of his head like antennas or horns.
Yeah, the girls meanwhile aren't noticing any of this, of course.
No, weirdly.
It's a sitcom reality.
And then Larry slowly walks over to Balky and like grabs him by the shirt and drags him to the kitchen.
Yeah.
So they step aside, of course, in sitcom land, as we mentioned before, they step aside.
If you're over there, I can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, but it doesn't work here either. So they're still arguing.
Yes.
And Larry's mad that Balky is making him look bad in front of Jennifer. And Balky's like, I think you were doing that yourself. And Larry is mad that Balky didn't follow his instructions to do the list and the ingredients, and instead they're serving the girls pig parts.
They both get mean at each other here. It's great.
And Balky says, you're just jealous because I need a chainsaw to cut your duck.
Oh, snap.
Oh, snap. Oh. By the way, this whole time, Bronson Pinchot is trying very hard. You can see his face convulsing.
His wiggly lips.
Laugh. Yeah. His giggly lips, right? Yeah. He says, you're just jealous because I need a chainsaw to cut your duck. And Larry's like, well, the girls aren't exactly scarfing up the snout. And Balky's like, it's an acquired taste.
Okay, so he does admit it's an acquired taste a little bit. And then Jennifer comes over to them and is trying to calm everyone down. Larry says Balky's acting like a 5-year-old. Balky says Larry is acting like a big fat yaks behind with all the hair. And then she interrupts them. She goes, you guys have to stop. And then you hear from the table, Marianne just turns and goes, do you have any ketchup? She's
like sitting there eating still.
Pig snout with ketchup is probably good.
Ketchup. Yeah.
She doesn't care. She's enjoying the pig snout.
And Jennifer's like, Marianne, we should go. And Larry and Balky are like, no, just stay. Balky's like, we have pie. Larry's like, it's good because I didn't make it. And they all sit down again at the table, and Jennifer encourages them to work things out. And what follows is Jennifer starts by saying, in fact, I think you know what it's time for?
What is that?
It's a reenactment.
Oh, my God.
Now, we have heard some positive reviews from listeners. Thank you very much. saying that they enjoy when we do reenactments. But today's reenactment is a little bit different.
Oh, we're going to flip it up.
We are not going to reenact a Larry Balky exchange, but instead we're going to reenact a Jennifer Marianne
What are we
exchange.
talking about?
Oh, my God. This is going to be great.
So
Okay.
the scene again, we're back at the table. Jennifer has broken up Balky and Larry's fight. Okay. Do you want to play Jennifer or Marianne?
I kind of want to play Marianne. And for the listener, this is the scene where the whole conversation kind of shifts focus and turns into something. But I want to play Marianne.
We're going to try this. Okay. You're going to do Marianne. I'll be Jennifer. Ready? Go. Arguments happen between roommates. Believe me, I understand. Well, Marianne and I get on each other's nerves sometimes. Like when she spends 3 hours in the bathroom putting on her makeup.
Marianne goes, oh, yeah, she hates when I do that. And then she sits and for a second and goes, and I hate when she rearranges my closet without asking me.
Well, I wouldn't have to if you'd keep your things in order.
Maybe the way I keep my things is my business.
And then just an aside, throughout this whole exchange, Balky and Larry are trying to validate them, calm the tensions. They're like, good point. Who wants pie? Raising toasts to here's to good friends.
Yeah, I love when Larry goes,
arguing.
here's to good friends. It's so awkward, but it doesn't work.
Okay, so then Jennifer continues, fine, I won't touch your things. Just don't come begging me to borrow a clean uniform because you didn't realize yours were at the cleaners.
Oh, just once I borrowed a uniform and got a spot on it, and you've never let me forget it.
Well, maybe if you were more careful on the job, you wouldn't have spilled anything.
Oh, so now you're going to tell me how to do my job.
Well, somebody should tell you how to do your job while I'm working my tail off trying to make the flight a safe and pleasant experience. You're serving drinks, singing Belly Up to the Bar, boys.
Well, excuse me for being nice to the passengers. At least when we're about to land, I don't tell them, return your seat to the upright position or I'll call the authorities.
Those are the rules.
You were a pain in high school and you're a pain now. Everything has to be perfect. Perfect hair, perfect clothes, perfect manners. It's like living with a Barbie doll.
Now I'm mad. And then they lunge at each other.
Then what are they going to do? They're going to rip each other apart.
I don't know what they're going to do, but they lunge at each other, and Balky and Larry have to pull them apart.
I love this flip because now they have just caused a huge problem between Jennifer and Marianne
are pissed. Now, before we get back to the scene, there's a reference we need to talk about here, and it is the song Belly Up to the Bar Boys.
Yeah, what is this?
So Belly Up to the Bar Boys is a song that was sung by Debbie Reynolds in the 1964 musical film The Unsinkable Molly Brown. And it happens to be a song about drinking, and I think we have a little sample.
The great Debbie Reynolds. Let's check out a little bit.
Belly up to the bar, boys. Better loosen your belts. Only drink when you're all alone or with somebody else.
Very simple instructions for drinking.
Oh, that sounds like a really fun song.
Only drink when you're alone or when you're with somebody else. Got it. Thanks, Debbie Reynolds.
So that was something I probably wouldn't have known in 1997 either.
She's pretty much alluding that Jennifer is just flirting with all the passengers, Marianne is flirting with all the passengers and getting them drunk and just going, belly up to the bar, boys. That's great.
Okay, so they're in this big fight now, Jennifer and Marianne now, and Balky and Larry have pulled them apart, and Balky is in shock. He's like, Jennifer, Marianne, shame on you. How long have you known each other? And Marianne says, since they were 8 years old.
Aww.
And Balky makes this funny, scoffing face.
Yeah.
He just goes, just with his face.
Yeah.
Doesn't inaudible scoffing face. And he says, and now you want to throw your friendship away because you think she's too perfect and you think she's not perfect enough? And he gets them to apologize.
Yeah.
So Marianne apologizes and admits that, yes, she can be a little bit messy sometimes. And Jennifer apologizes and admits that, yes, she can get worked up about things that aren't that important. And then Balky says, now hug each other. And they give each other this light, annoyed hug.
It's a weak hug, yes.
A weak hug. And Balky says, like you mean it. And then they truly apologize. And they do hug each other properly. And then Balky says, now hug me. And he goes in and the girls hug him from either side. And then he lifts his head up and he goes, like you mean it. And they hug him a little tighter, which was a nice little exchange. So then Larry's like, let's get back to dinner. They all sit down again. They look around at the food and then they're like, he's like, all right, let's be real. Who wants to order a pizza?
Yes.
And they all raise their hand. And then Marianne holds up her fork and she says, might as well. My ding ding's cold.
Oh, her ding ding's cold. Listen, what a great mediator Balki proves himself to be in this.
Even though he was just a moment earlier fighting with Larry.
Yes, yelling with Larry. And I love this. Larry has a line in here, and you see how useless Larry is, where Larry just goes, this is all my fault. I burned the duck. I can't do anything right. And Balki's like, cousin, you're not helping.
You're not helping.
And, and then he just takes over. And I was like, look at Balki smooth this out. He's so sensitive. He would be a great mediator for problems.
Balki is. I mean, this is, again, the dynamic we're developing in these characters where Larry is just like, everything is the biggest deal in the world. This date is the most important night of his life. It's going to set the course of his entire life, and this woman's going to make his babies, whatever. And Balki's just like, let's just have dinner, and I made some Eposian food, and you two shouldn't be fighting because you've been friends since you were 8 years old.
We'll do some kickbacks. We'll be marshmallows. Give me the ding ding Mahmoud.
What the big deal is?
What the big deal is? Okay, so the little tiny Act 3 begins later that night after the dinner's over. The girls are leaving. And then Larry's like, are you sure you don't have to go? It's only 1. And I was like, what? It's 1 in the morning?
1
and you're like, he goes, it's early. It's 1. And Marianne says, no, to us it's 7 because jet lag. Yes. She tells Balki goodnight, kisses him on the cheek. And Marianne kisses Balki, and Balki is a little bit stunned. And just breathless as he gets whenever she kisses him on the cheek. And Jennifer tells Larry she had a nice time and she's glad she got to know him better. She smiles at him. They do not have a kissing exchange.
Kiss him.
There's no mistletoe this time, so I guess he can't force her like during Christmas.
Well, I like the way they set this up too, because first they're both standing in couples, right? On either side of the door that's open, and Marianne's just like, "Good night, Balki," and kisses him.
Yeah.
And it's this sweet little moment, and Balki's blushing, and then Jennifer says, I had a nice time, and then just smiles at him and doesn't kiss him. And he's waiting for it too.
But they're still both satisfied with the way the evening went. And Larry goes, did you hear that? She knows me better. And Balki goes, better than what? Larry's like, let's not analyze it. I just want to enjoy the moment. And then they both do this inhale in unison, and they're just enjoying the moment for a second after all the craziness. And then they start clearing off the table. And Larry goes, well, it was really rough going there. If we hadn't been there, they'd probably still be fighting. And Balki, keeping it real, goes, yeah, but if we hadn't been there, they probably wouldn't have fought at all.
Very true.
Which is also true.
Larry says he didn't know Jennifer could be so nitpicky. And he says, I know Marianne's no rocket scientist, but Jennifer shouldn't be so hard on her. And then Balki says, I didn't know Marianne could be that way.
This is a great line.
And Larry's like, what way? He says, cousin, the wires up here don't connect. And he's pointing to his head.
Oh, my God.
He says, Jennifer is a little crazy about being neat, but Marianne was pretty hard on her. So also this is an acknowledgement that they all agree that Marianne's a little dumb.
The wires don't connect, cousin.
Don't connect. So, but Marianne was pretty hard on Jennifer too. And then Balki says, it must be difficult for them to live together when they're so different. And so then Larry, they're still cleaning up the table and stuff, organizing. Larry's like, yeah, and if the girls are going to stay best friends and still live together, they're going to have to learn to compromise. Good friends are hard to come by. And just then they stop and realize that guess what? They're not only talking about Jennifer and Marianne, they're also talking about themselves.
It's lesson time.
Yes, then the music conveniently shows up, the lesson time music.
Balki admits Marianne could be a little more organized. And Larry admits Jennifer could use to loosen up a little bit. Larry apologizes to Balki for making fun of his food, which is very nice because he was so mean. And Balki apologizes for inviting the girls over without asking him. And Larry's like, it's okay. Larry goes, if I had to wait to get up the nerve to think about how tense I'd be. And Balki thinks for a second. He goes, that's a scary thought. Larry picks up the Ding Ding Mahmoud and he's about to throw it out. He's like, I guess I could throw this out. And Balki stops him. He goes, no. I'm going to freeze this. He goes, why? He goes, you haven't lived until you've had snout on a stick.
And roll credits. Yeah. So this lesson time I like because it starts with them talking about Marianne and Jennifer, but in code, and they know they're talking about themselves, right?
I love the parallel of the two duos' relationship, the two roommates' relationship, Jennifer and Marianne, paralleling these two guys, how they're kind of perfect for each other. You have an uptight woman, but matched with a planner who's also overreacts. And then you got like the messy girl who's not too bright hanging out with the
Balky, who just likes to
just
have
go
fun.
with the flow.
Okay, so are you a Larry Jennifer or are you a Balky Marianne?
Right now, I am a Balky Marianne because I feel like they have a little more of a healthy, defined kind of role where, like, Larry's being super obsessive and creepy, right, with Jennifer. But at the same time, I feel like Jennifer is, like, kind of toying with him unnecessarily.
No, but I mean like in the roommate dynamic, are you like the planner, organizer?
No, I'm definitely
like everything's
the
a big deal.
Oh, no,
or are
I'm definitely.
you
Okay.
the Balky / Marianne?
This is so funny you asked this because I think that's the beauty of the show is everybody can relate to parts of these characters. I'm both. I'm both. I am definitely the overreacting freak out Larry type. I get that from our mother. You know this.
Yeah.
Right? Just everything is just but I'm also like Balky and like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. Who cares? Just go with the flow.
I think I've been both in different phases of my life, like it depends on the situation, but
I thought you were asking which relationship am I shipping more?
No, not relationship. I just put them together. Like
the pairs.
Larry and Jennifer are more of the uptight planner type.
No, I see myself. I can relate to both of them. And I've found myself relating to both of them in their lesson times throughout these episodes. Like, it's great. It's so relatable, this show.
Yeah.
Give me the ding ding Mahmoud.
No.
Give me the ding ding Mahmoud.
No.
Hey, relax. We'll do some kickbacks. We'll be marshmallows. So that's
what
big.
the big deal is.
Balky is mates a named Myposian food in America. Is this the first time?
So some commentary on this episode. This is the first time we are getting to know Myposian food.
Yes.
Is that right?
I think so. He's cooked things, but I don't think they've named the things.
He's done like the cold remedy.
Right.
But not food. And particularly Ding Ding Mahmoud, which comes back in this show again and again. So this is our introduction to Pig Snout in Saffron.
I'm just waiting for the Bibi Babka episode because that's one of my favorite.
Don't give it away.
I know that's like the peak of the show. It is like one of my favorite episodes. I can watch over and over. But now we have started.
But Pig Snout is a recurring theme
and
in the show as well.
Eels wrapped in grape leaves. The running joke of Larry sniffing in the air is also done a lot. But we mentioned when he sniffed and Balky turns to look over his shoulder like he had flatulence. Yeah. They do that, I guess. Again, that becomes a running joke, which there was probably an improv thing they started and it just was funny. They just do it.
And then we mentioned and played the song Belly Up to the Bar Boys. And as we mentioned before, it was from a musical film called The Unsinkable Molly Brown, which was also a play which Melanie Wilson's father, Dick Wilson, performed in one point. Of course, Dick Wilson.
Tying it back to Dick Wilson. And we kind of talked about how we really got to learn a lot about Jennifer and Marianne in this episode. Like, they've been friends since they were 8 years old.
They're both flight attendants. They're roommates. All these details that we were kind of wondering about start getting confirmed. And also the nature of their relationship with...
And the parallel to the cousins. Yeah, good stuff. All right, my favorite part, Dimitri Appearances. Did you catch Dimitri in this one? It's really cute.
It's really cute. Dimitri was sitting on the end table by the couch having dinner.
Yes.
With a female sheep.
There was another Dimitri stuffed sheep in there.
Female stuffed
He's
sheep
got a
companion.
little girlfriend.
Oh, Dimitri was on a date too.
By the way, where's that lamp? That's usually where the lamp is. The lamp was missing. Did they move the lamp to put Dimitri there?
They probably moved the lamp. I wonder if they were eating Myposian food or duck à l'orange.
Well, as long as he didn't serve them lamb, because that would be weird.
That would be
It'd be weird to serve the little sheep lamb.
Yes. Okay, so we have some good Balkyisms this episode.
Oh, great ones.
You can relax and shake off your jet slag. I like that. I'm going to start saying jet slag.
I'm going to say this one. Well, relax. We'll do some kickbacks. We'll be marshmallows.
What the big deal is.
I love that.
What do you take me for, Bozo the Clown?
Bozo the Clown. And
Everyone knows the Cubs have no quarterback.
Well, and that's where he just confuses sports.
Yes.
But even he knows the Cubs suck still. And even he just come to the country, he knows the Cubs suck.
Of course.
Yeah.
Everyone in the world knew that for 108
Yes, for 100 years until they won the thing.
Don't be ridiculous is not said.
What?
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
I gotta have it in there. Other great.
I think there was half a mention of it, but not quite in the way that we know it. So there was like a hint of it.
Other great catchphrases I love when Larry goes, Balky, Balky, Balky. Because he's got a Larry's plane. Get ready for Larry's plane.
Yes. The hi in unison.
Yeah.
Hi.
And then I do love when Balky does, when he goes in the middle of the argument, where he's just like, good point. That's a good point. Good point.
That's a very good
That's been a good point. He's trying to de-escalate, and it's not working.
And then we have some other running gags that we see again in this episode. Larry, the very quick Larry Balky back and forths, where the first one was Larry going, aren't you? Aren't you? Aren't you? Yes, I am.
Yes.
So.
Aren't you being a little silly?
Larry's scoffing.
You can't.
Balky crying to get something he wants. I want to cook. I want to help cook. I want to help cook.
Balky cooks exotic Mibosian dishes. That's great.
The whole how many times exchange.
How many times, Balky?
How many? How many?
Times?
How many in America? None, as in zero, as in never.
Larry sniffing at the air multiple times. And then the clip we played where Larry wants something. Give me the ding ding Mahmoud.
No.
This is give me the ding ding Mahmoud.
No.
Give me the ding ding Mahmoud. Ha! Yeah, so there's the thing where they do this in threes, and Balky always ends with ha at the end. And then this time they tagged it with that.
Yes.
And Larry grabs Balky by the shirt, which I love when he does that.
Jennifer leaves without kissing Larry goodnight.
That happens a lot.
Also
That happens a lot.
And Balky and Larry sighing simultaneously. Now it's time for my favorite part of our podcast, which is called Perfect Strangers Today, in which we talk about if this story happened today, how would things be different?
Well, we mentioned you don't need travel alarms anymore, or a watch, or a wristwatch, or any kind of time device because you don't even have to reset it to the time zone you're in now when you travel.
Right. That was the other thing about travel alarms. You had to, when you got there,
you had to reset
set
the
it
stupid
up.
thing. Yes. You're like, what time is it here? I don't know. Okay.
Yes.
Now, when in daylight savings time, I don't change anything. I'm like, oh, it just changed. Okay, it changed on its own.
The next thing is, of course, the Cubs have indeed won the World Series.
2016. The day, that's when space and time collided and the universe started getting wacky. I'm telling you, that was not supposed to happen. They weren't supposed to.
But they did. And
did.
It was great. Meposian, I kind of thought Meposian food, if this was happening today, would be like a very hipster, like cool thing. And like there would be Meposian food trucks.
Imagine the Balky Ding Ding Mahmoud food truck. Yeah, pig snout food truck. Absolutely.
And like there would be like vegan alternatives to the pig snout, like fake lab grown pig snout and all this stuff. It would be just like
pig
something.
Snout. You'd have one called Beyond Ding Ding Mahmoud.
Beyond Ding Ding Mahmoud.
This is made from wild olives. Are there even wild olives?
Grown in a lab.
It's just grown. And then he had so much trouble making his meal, Larry. It made me think of like Blue Apron or these meal kits, or even now. You could go in the Mariano's and there's a box, $18. There's a meal for two. Everything you need.
24-year-olds can cook.
Everything is portioned, but everything you need portioned. You don't have anything extra. You can't mess this up.
Shoot, they could just Postmates the whole meal.
They could also, just deliver me.
Order the whole meal.
Deliver me a romantic meal. Yes. All that stuff.
I mean, they did end up ordering a pizza, which was the 1987 equivalent of that, ordering food. That's all you could do back then was order a pizza.
And now you can use the Domino's tracker and you know exactly who's making your pizza, what stage it's in, when it's in the car, when it's going to get to your door. It's wild. Good stuff. Also,
you could just put a whole duck in an Instant Pot now, and like all you have to do is broil it at the end to get it crispy, but like you can't really mess up a duck in an Instant
Can I tell you how much I love my Ninja Foodie air fryer? Oh my God, I don't need an oven anymore. This thing is amazing.
I love my Instant Pot. Yeah. Okay.
We got some
product endorsement.
We got Ninja Foodie sponsor the show.
Instant Pot.
We got one shout out, and I got a couple of shout outs I want to make to some people, Sophia.
Okay, let's hear him.
On Twitter, listener Tom O'Halloran tweeted us. He said, at Dance of Joy Pod, just watched season 7, episode 1 yesterday. Just wait until you get back there when the quote-unquote dead king is moving in the background as Larry and Balky are talking. He says, love the show. Keep it up. I don't know what he's talking about.
I know what he's talking
Oh
about.
my God.
I remember this.
I don't remember that, and it sounds creepy. I can't wait to find out what it is.
It's an excellent episode.
That reminds me of like the Wizard of Oz story where there's like a person hanging in the background and all this crazy stuff, no?
You're a little bit off. It's more of a Weekend at Bernie's type situation.
Oh, got it. Okay. Oh my God. That sounds hilarious and weird.
It will be, but we have quite a ways to go before we get to season 7.
Thanks, Tom. We'll get there in about 2.5 years.
Thank you so much, Tom.
But thanks for listening.
Stick with us.
Yes, we'll get there eventually.
We'll get there.
One
We're
week at a
committed.
time. I also want to give a couple of shout outs to an Apple Podcast listener for leaving a lovely review from listener user C. Tikka. Which I imagine stands for chicken tikka, which is a delicious Indian dish.
Chicken tikka makes me think this might be somebody related to
Maybe
us.
it's somebody related to us. You can check out the review on our website or at Apple Podcasts. It's a fantastic 5-star review. Thank you so
Great
much.
review. Thank you, chicken tikka or C tikka.
C tikka. And then I have to correct something I said in a previous show. Listener, I said we had a listener, Richard S., who had left us our first iTunes Apple Podcast review, which was true and also false in a way.
What?
Let me explain. He left us our first U.S. Apple Podcast review. But before that, our first actual review came from a lovely listener of from our Jock and Nerd podcast, Dr. Adam Morris, PhD. I know he's listening. He left a great review in the Canadian Apple Podcast store.
Of course. Canadians are the best.
They
Thank
really
you, Dr.
are.
Adam Morris.
You couldn't be more right about Canadians are the best. Let me tell you,
Canadians
Adam Morris
are
is
the
such a
best.
great dude. He is so smart. He is a wildlife scientist. He's studying polar bears up in the Arctic. And for some reason, he listens to our dumb show. Yes, he listens to Jock and Nerd and this show, which is complete, just random nonsense. But
You heard it here, folks. Scientists.
yes, we are
Our
endorsed
show
by
is endorsed by science.
He has a PhD, people. Come on.
Scientists, Dr. Scientists are listening to our show.
Yes,
If that's not reason
true.
enough for you,
Thank you,
I don't
Adam
know
Morris.
what else we can do.
He's the best. That's it for this week, listener. Next week, you want to stay subscribed because next week somebody has an insomnia problem.
Uh-oh, somebody can't sleep.
And somebody plays armchair psychiatrist.
Uh-oh, that sounds so hilarious.
I'll let you guess who does what, and we'll tell you who it is next week.
Join us next week to find out the scoop on the insomnia. In the meantime, be like Dr. Morris, the PhD
That's
scientist from Canada, and get in touch. Visit danceofjoypod.com. All of our podcast platform links are there. All of our social media links on there. Give us a like, a follow, a subscribe. Leave us messages. We will shout you out on the show every single time.
And if you love the show, the easiest and most important thing you could do is just share this show with a friend. Tell them you found a mostly family-friendly show. It's family-friendly. We got a lot of people writing that.
We're absolutely family friendly.
So that opens it up for a lot. Gather around your phone. Everyone can listen. But share the show. Word of mouth is the best way to help us out. And it's free and it's easy. And you have the power, listener. Did you know, Sophia, you can, in Apple, on your iOS phone, you can text podcast episodes to people.
What?
Right?
So easy to share.
So right now, listener, just text this episode to a friend. One friend. That's it. That's all. That's all you got to do.
We will love you forever
That's
for
right.
it. That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy. Die, 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 die. Hey, hey,
Hey, hey, hey, hey, hey, hey.
Give me the ding ding Mahmoud.
No.